Denise Dye, welcome to the ITA College Tennis Coaches Podcast.
Thank you for having me here, Dave. I've
Yeah,
always been listening to your podcast for pretty much the last few years, so excited to be here.
yeah, we've been trying to make this happen for a while. Obviously, I'm a proud Fresno State alum and got to revisit Fresno after 20-year hiatus and had a great time watching your team compete there in March. So thank you for being such a gracious host. It was wonderful to be back there.
Oh yes, and thank you too for even spending some time a little bit of your busy life. I know it was a short trip for you, and the team still remembers you. And I remember when you were appointed the president, they were all like gun ho for about 24 hours. So it was pretty exciting. Not only to have you on campus, but even for my team to remember you. I thought that was great.
Oh, that's very nice of them. Thank you. All right. Well, look, you were obviously an outstanding college player. I remember you playing. You were high as three in the ITA ranking singles, number six in doubles. How do you think being a successful player helps you as a college coach, or does it hinder you in any way? Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, I think my playing experience in college was probably the reason why I decided I really looked into becoming a college coach. I had a great experience, a great college coach. It was Jill Hillquist, Hetherington Hillquist, and yeah, I she really guided me through my whole process in my college career. I was a big part of my success was from her, so I'm really grateful for that. And being a player was very yeah, it's obviously like having great playing experience really kind of shows you a great playing side of a player, like understanding like what what would happen if you would put yourself in their shoes. How does somebody feel like on a clinch match with a group of girls? Like how do we go on to a day-to-day life, and every little detail that you experience as a student athlete, like it definitely transitions and translates into what you want to do as a coach. But then it's like on the flip side, you have you have like there's obviously so many other things that involve coaching. There's the administrative piece, the leadership styles, like understanding like the bigger picture of other things. So yeah, having great experience, playing experience was amazing. But at the same time, it was a big learning curve for me, transitioning from a player to a coach, and it took me some time to kind of figure out my coaching voice. And I'm very lucky to be a part of my first assistant coaching opportunity was at University of Iowa with Katie Doherty, and she really showed me how to find that voice too, and really helped guided me through my coaching career as my first pit stop there.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think sometimes, at least for me, transitioning from playing to coaching, I felt maybe I knew more than I actually did, and maybe relied too much on my playing experience, and maybe should have had a more open mind to what I didn't know and the gaps in my knowledge. But that's, leads me to my next question, because you are certified by PTR, USPTA, GPTCA, you've done the NCAA Women's Academy. You completed the USTA High Performance program. So you have opened yourself to lots of learning opportunities. How have these programs helped you become a better coach, do you believe?
Um, yeah, it seems like a lot. Yeah, I think it's always yeah, I think it's always important to, even as a player, you're constantly trying to, it's just a different perspective. As a player, you're constantly trying to find the smallest or biggest things that will help your game. And I think that also relates to coaching. Like I feel it's important at the end of the day to evolve as a player or as a coach. I think PTR and Use PTA obviously has a huge percentage of our coaching industry. If even if you're a college tennis coach, you constantly as a college tennis coach obviously meet tons of high school coaches, club coaches, and we're part of that industry. And I do think and relatable even for GPTCA, you meet a lot of coaches who are involved with pro players in the male side of things. Even though it's even though as a women's coach we don't deal with obviously a lot of male figures, but I do think it's important. Our both of our worlds collide. Tennis is one of those sports that bring both genders together. So I think it's just as important to learn more about male tennis. And the NCAA Women's Coaches Academy mostly it's lots of the college industry, just understanding. It's kind of what you said. It's as a player, you don't really realize what is happening around surrounding yourself, and you're constantly focused on what you're doing and how you're getting better and how that relates to the team. Where the NCAA Coaches Academy, for example, I understood a lot about the college industry, how the NCAA works, how administrators within a college administration operate, what their leadership styles were, and being able to kind of like just adapt to just different types of leadership styles, understanding what their planning, their strategic planning is, and learning about like different players, coachings. It's just nice to just gain a lot of different kinds of insights to just people in general in our industry. So
Mm.
I really enjoyed all of those sort of like that time learning and really growing my own coaching ability.
Yeah, no, well done. I mean, I think that's it's easy once you get, established, you get your first college coaching job, say, and it's easy not to do those things. You get so wrapped up in the day to day, and you're focused on recruiting, developing your team, but actually taking some time out to doing some continuing education. Because even I found, working outside of college tennis or with higher level players when I used to coach in the summers with, beginner players or beginner adults, junior players, I think it helps your problem solving. You're trying to identify this weakness, this issue, you're trying to explain it in a way to a very unskilled player. And then when you get to the more skilled players, it's maybe helps you being a little bit more adaptable, creative. And so I don't know if you had a similar experience in that, or have learned from those courses, you know, things that, because I think sometimes our coaches feel like it's maybe not specific enough, right? It's like, well, this isn't designed for me, you know, but I feel like we're throwing, there could be one or two things in there that could absolutely, you can tie back if you have an open mind and you're thinking about, same when you're reading a book, like, how does this apply to my day to day? How does this apply to practice or my interactions with with my players? But how have you thought about that? Are there some like lessons that maybe surprised you, or anything that you've got from these courses that you've been able to implement on a very regular basis?
No, yeah, I think you made a great point. It's like I think a lot of these courses and these certifications, they for me, I guess it keeps me grounded. Like you understand just basic things, simple things, and sometimes we forget something like even yeah, and in addition to the one of the coaching programs I'm involved in right now is actually the WTA Coach Inclusion Program, which is a
Mhm.
collaboration between administrators of the WTA, current coaches and players on the tour. We're able to shadow with them, see their day-to-day life, and sometimes you just don't realize how sometimes basic and things are. Like we don't have to make things super complicated and super specific. Like sometimes just having a great relationship with a player on the tour is going to be is going to give them the confidence that they need to kind of just get through the day. So I do think that's yeah, I see a lot of all these different kinds of just stories and ways to learn and do things, and it's kind of what you said. I kind of apply things whatever it is in my life, and it's probably kind of relates to me and who I am to the core. It's pretty much kind of my game style as well. I didn't really play a specific way. I like, hey, I love Andre Agassi's return. I'm going to do that. I love Steffi Graf's slice backhand. I'll do that too. Do I like the other things of their games? Maybe, maybe not. But I do think same thing with these things. I think there's a reason why PTR, PTA, NCAA, GPTCA are great certifications. They're doing something right, and I would rather focus on those positive aspects rather than just being really critical about it. And I do think that it's there's always I really believe that there's always something you can learn from somebody, and now it's not just somebody, it's an entity. Like these days it's not just about the individual player anymore. Like even in pro tennis, you have like everything. Every time they say thank you or have an end of the year a match speech, it's I want to thank my team. Like we're operating in teams these days. I feel that even as an individual sport, it's very important to understand different individuals, but also different teams, whether it's entities, organizations, pro player teams, college teams. So I think yeah, I've learned so many just little things from each certification. I can be here for days
Yeah.
trying to go through that.
No, but it's great, and just yeah, I want to say congratulations again, because there's not really a culture of that here in America. Most Western European countries, you have to get certified, even if you want to coach at the most basic level at a tiny little club. You have to go through that process. Doesn't matter how good a player you were. Some countries obviously do it better than others. I think the ones that really stand out are what the LTA is doing, and in France as well. I mean, that's a full on, kind of diploma course in order to become certified. And it is quite shocking for a European citizen to come to America and realize like, wow, you're telling me you can be a college coach and you don't have to get any training. You
Yeah.
don't be responsible for these 10, 15, 20 play, whatever number of players are on your squad. I need to go get a haircut later today. I mean, the person will have their little certification up there and they've had to go through training and continuing education. And it's just not something that's culturally embedded in the tennis ecosystem here. And it's not a problem we're going to solve today, but I just do find it interesting. So I guess well done on booking the trend, I would say. Denise, what are some gaps in your education as a coach that you still believe you have to fulfill? You've done all this coursework and these certifications, but are there areas that have come up in recent years that you were like, wow, I really didn't have an answer or solution for this situation, or I wasn't as well prepared for this particular scenario. So are there any gaps there that you think you need to fulfill, and how will you go about doing that in the coming years?
I think it's just I think probably one of the biggest things, only thing that I'm really uncomfortable with is just the idea of talking about bringing politics in the picture. I think yeah, like we have the NCAA versus House going on right now. We have just tons of things where politics and sports are kind of like playing around, doing this tug of war. And I don't, I for me in my personal experience, I guess I've never really had these conversations, even as a student athlete, as much as I am do right now, and especially when you tie in the NIL piece and the social media piece, I think that's makes it even more dramatic and sometimes a little bit more challenging. People want to hear your voice and they want to see what side you kind of fall in, and I think it makes it tough. It makes it tough not only as a coach, but even for the student athletes too. It's like how do they represent themselves, and I think those conversation pieces are very different for me, and I'm still trying to learn, still trying to grow those grow that side of things, and it's yeah, it's hard to tell your story where you're kind of restricted, or it's the picture you don't really understand what direction are you trying to go with. So that's probably going to be my biggest thing, and I think just constantly just meeting I guess the right people as a coach that is going to go with your own coaching style. Like there's millions of people in the world coach, and everybody has different styles, different abilities, and I think really I'm always trying to find a way to connect with more people who kind of align with my not only my values but even my style and are my goals, I guess. So yeah, just obviously that's networking and being able to stay connected to the people who are kind of flow with me. So yeah, I hope that answers your question there.
No, it does. Just going back to the as you referenced the House versus NCA case, and kind of informing yourself more on those matters that are impacting college athletics. Are your student athletes asking you questions about that? Are they concerned? Are they appear worried about everything that's going on, or are they just going about their normal day?
Well, I think a little bit of both. Like, you definitely have the athletes who challenge the system. There's always going to be athletes like that in every teams where they're asking those questions, and yeah, there's some athletes who are really focused on their tennis skill, which is just as great too. So a little bit of both, I would say. But
Mm.
yeah, it's like for the ones who do ask those important questions, which what those are the athletes, right? That you give them a direction like to go with, like they're gonna go through a wall for you as a coach, right? So you have those athletes who are really ambitious, who really want to do stuff and want to make the best decision for everybody. Not so I do think it's yeah, that definitely comes across definitely more often
Mm.
these past days, especially obviously with even the conference realignments. Like, oh, are we
Oh,
going here? Are we going there? It's yeah, it makes it fun, but also yeah, it does confuse the student athletes, I guess, in some ways. But most of them, I think, are really adaptable to change. I think that's kind of what they grew up with. So
mhm.
everything is changing. So I think they're pretty much ready for it, I guess.
All right. Well, tell them coaches and administrators are just as confused as they are with everything going on right now, so they shouldn't feel bad. But yeah, definitely want to touch on kind of this new era of college athletics. We've started talking about it more on the podcast, but teams like Fresno State and I played there and so know the program well, obviously was beyond upset learning when the men's program was canceled during COVID and still haven't got over it. But I would, when I played at Fresno, we were able to compete with the best teams in the country. I mean, we beat UCLA and USC and Cal Berkeley and got destroyed by Stanford every time back then. But we were able to compete at that level, had top 10 teams, had very good players, were able to attract some great international players, but also really good California players as well, in-state players. But that's getting harder as we know to do that. And I wonder how you at a place like Fresno manage those expectations? Because I would imagine the tennis community like to harken back to, well, the women's team made the quarterfinals back in whatever year that was with Simone Thibodeau and Kevin Eppley had great teams. And, um, how do you manage that? And then also with administrators, do they have same kind of unrealistic expectations? Like, hey, we're Fresno State. We're going to go and beat this team and win this title and do that. I mean, has that come up? And if so, how do you manage it?
Yeah, it's obviously it's yeah, there's no reason to go around it put directly. Yeah, it is getting harder. The gray area in between a power four school and a mid-major school these days in general is it's getting bigger. The gap is getting bigger. It could be just as simple things as Alston money, NIL money obviously is a huge deal. Teams can be players by head. Obviously, in Fresno State, we're not in that position to do that just yet. Um, Even simple things like having all three meals given to you per day. So yeah, the gaps are getting bigger, but I think and administrators and the community surrounding know and understand the success that all the history of Fresno State tennis in general is. And definitely I feel that pressure on a daily basis. And that's probably why I love to compete because I love the pressure. But I think one thing remains that in Fresno State within the administrators and the community is that at the end of the day, it's still a very hardworking school. Like it's also a very big people school. Like people who are part of Fresno State tennis, and from what I've been hearing and who I've met, including yourself, um, the alumni stay in tennis. We're administrators, we're coaches,
Mm.
we are we're club directors. So I think Fresno State tennis, it's always going to be a school where tennis people continue to be tennis people. You can throw in hundreds of thousands of dollars of NIL money or all these benefits and support stuff and everything, but to me, I still like Fresno State the most because of its people, and I think everybody who is a part of the program, whether it's now or even previously, probably most likely will stay in tennis. And I think having that kind of family and not really more of a monetary and benefits and transactional attitude towards it, I think for me, I'd probably value that of just a little bit more than the extra racket or two that I would get as a student athlete. So For me, that's kind of how I look at it, and why I like Fresno State, why I've stayed here for since my head coaching first my first head coaching job, and I will continue to stay here because I think it's just such a great community to just be a part of, most importantly.
Yeah, and that's really good to hear, Denise. And just now, how has recruiting changed, or has it over the last few years? I mean, are you getting different questions from recruits in terms of what you're going to, provide them above a scholarship? I thought a scholarship was pretty cool, but, are they asking for additional monies or resources that you haven't heard those questions in the past? And how do you manage that? I mean, do you just move on quickly? Do you not even attempt to recruit those players that you believe will probably ask those questions because they're having conversations with other coaches who can maybe provide that?
Yeah, I think you're right. You're right. It's student athletes. Sometimes you can't. There's definitely this past few years, especially with the transfer portal, with NIL opening up, where you can't even get your foot in the door with certain student athletes, and to me, I guess that's not what we're all about at Fresno State. Even our football team, like it's no lie, like unfortunately, our football coaches and players are the lowest paying coaches in the country, but
Mm,
they're still top 30. They're sometimes cracking the top 25.
yeah,
Fresno State is not about like those items and those things and what you get and what you don't get. So you're right. Like there's a certain balance obviously to it, right? It's I'll try to give as much as possible if that player is going to be representing the university in the best way possible, whether it's skill related or other things. But yeah, there's going to be student athletes that they won't be the right fit for Fresno if those are the things that they value the most. So yeah, it's and it does make recruiting harder. There's especially now that we've kind of gone through our last COVID fifth year players. I feel that there's tons of spots open in all over the country.
mm,
So yeah, it definitely makes recruiting a little bit harder, but I do think that the things that Fresno State gives and offers is yeah, I just have to make sure I as a head coach, I guess I'm recruiting those players who fit the Fresno State profile, I would say.
got it. And do you worry now, Denise, like if you recruit a player who maybe is under the radar a little bit, or just kind of takes a jump in their development just as they're coming to college and they have a great freshman year, do you worry now that that player, regardless of the experience they're having, might just be heading somewhere else because they know they can get greater resources or monies, if they attend a different university?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, even my top two players right now, I know that they've been getting offers. My top two players, right? You're definitely in the where we are, where Fresno State is, or many other schools in my position. We have to re-recruit the whole team every year.
Mm,
To me, with the transfer portal, with NIL, and if somebody does very well at number one position, I had a player who's conference player 2 years, 3 years in a row. It's yeah, why wouldn't they take that business opportunity? Why wouldn't they want to maximize their potential? And I get that too. Obviously sport, and as much as I do this job for an awesome experience, at the end of the day it's also a business as well, which we have to find that balance. So yeah, I think every year I expect to be re-recruiting my whole team, and I also expect that I there's going to be at least 1 to 4 scholarships to recruit in on a semester, if not yearly basis. So yeah, recruiting has gotten even more difficult because yeah, I don't know, but I don't think I'm not that old. But even I remember when I was a student athlete, my experiences, yeah, you never really transferred if it was like, yeah, if unless you like broke the law or something really bad happened with your coach, if, like a coach would know like, hey, I got this person in as a freshman. That person will probably most likely stay for a little bit. And as a teammate and a student athlete, I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. So yeah, it makes more work on a year to year, semester to semester basis. And especially when the transfer portal, obviously there's a lot of challenges to that too, right? Is getting the sophomores, the juniors, getting their credits transferred and all that stuff. It's I think it works both ways. Like if you look at my roster right now, most of my players are transfers. They're transfers who maybe want more playing time. There's many different reasons for that. Then it would be playing time. It would just be like trying to get out to a new team with new people.
Mhm.
So I think as much as the players who are transferring out of Fresno, there's always people coming in at the same time. So I just think that it's just again, it's just evolving with what what is happening, and I think the transfer portal, in my opinion, works both ways for everybody.
So Denise, just I mean, you played obviously at a Power Four school in Washington. You were assistant coach at Iowa, Washington, Arizona. Um, so you've had exposure or access maybe to more resources at those places, and every place has its pros and cons. Obviously, there's no perfect spot, but do you feel like those experiences adequately prepared you to then coach at a mid-major school, or was it just kind of, yeah, they're, business as usual. These are your resources. You adapt accordingly.
Um, Yeah, probably the latter. I say like I think the my experience in this is my fourth institution, and every institution has very different yeah, it's very different resources, different support, different leadership styles, different set of rules and parameters that we all have to work around with. Um, and every university has its own certain profile. So yeah, I think the best thing about obviously about having those resources is in support is that I can directly work with those student athletes. I spent a lot of my assistant coaching career, learning about the head coaches that I worked for, who all have very different team dynamics and leadership styles. I was able to really fully absorb that and not having to worry about, I don't know, like uh, doing something like for like our SID or like obviously in a mid-major, like as a mid-major head coach, you're wearing your hats that you're wearing. It's you wear them longer. Like you're an SID even more. You can't just ask somebody to, hey, like let's get a post here. You're trying to work around different kinds of things and doing it yourself. You do most things yourself as in a mid-major school. Whereas in let's say a Power Four school, like those resources are there, and you get to spend a lot of time developing your coaching style, really spending time with the players directly. And I think that experience really helped me as a coach going into the mid-major, I guess, school, simply because because I'm the sole person, I work directly with the student athletes. The student athletes talk to me and tell me everything about them. And I'm very grateful for that trust. But I think the resources, yeah, if they're there, that's fine. But I think, yeah, it's you just kind of work around and ultimately with what you get.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Well, we're going to jump into some rapid fire questions. So, what's one book that has had an impact on your coaching career to date?
Um, The Pursuit of Excellence by Terry Orlick.
Okay. And why is that? Why do you recommend that book?
I think it's just a generally a great book for anybody, regardless of what level you're in, to basically achieve high performance in sport and life.
Okay. Best piece of advice you've received about coaching or life in general?
Perception is reality.
What is your favorite drill to do with your team?
We call it lavash, or some people call it speed singles. I don't know if
Okay.
you've heard of
Is
that
that,
before.
no. Well,
Basically, like it's like let's say it's it could be three versus three, four versus four. You feed a ball in, um, play a point out. Whoever loses the point rotates out with your team, and your teammate will feed the next ball in as fast as possible anywhere in the court. And basically, you got to win 4.3 or 4 points in a row, depending on the number of players per side, to win 1 point.
gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Chipotle or Panera on the road?
I go Panera.
Panera. Okay. We need one of these places to sponsor college tennis, right? I mean, just
Probably.
we give them
That'll be
some
the great
business.
NIL deal for ITA.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. We need to. So I'm going to keep asking that question and get the word out. So we'll see which one's more popular. Um, what is one rule that could be adopted for college tennis that would make it more appealing to the general sports fan?
Probably nothing specific, but I think that we still should try to figure out how we can shorten the match format for fast-paced viewing preferences, and try to engage audiences a little bit more.
Okay, so what's one thing we can do to shorten it?
tiebreaker at 5-all, maybe.
Okay. All right. Well, Denise, we did it. Thank you for coming on the podcast. This was great. Lovely to reconnect with you, and best of luck to the Bulldogs this year.
Thank you very much, Dave.